Good afternoon. Welcome to Pike Creek Farm. Got my apron on, so we're going to do some canning today. If this is your first time to my channel, thank you so much for stopping by. I do videos on canning and recipes on cooking and baking and a lot of vintage recipes from my mom and grandma. But today I'm going to do some new canning. So this is something I've never done before, and I'm going to take you along with me. We have a pear tree in our yard that is very old. We have almost 8 acres here, and there's probably over 20 different fruit trees, including 3 different pear trees. And they're old trees. They're not new trees at all. We want to plant some new ones, but I have these pears and they're pretty small, and they were real hard, and they're just starting to soften up now in October. So from my research and what people have told me, they're cooking canning pears. So last week I made some pear preserves. It was the first time ever making that with lemon and sugar, and it kind of it turns into almost like a honey with these pears and lemon slices in it, and it's supposed to be great on biscuits. I even had extra of the sauce left that I canned that up because I think it'd be great in tea or on biscuits. So today I've been doing some research to try and find like a savory version of something to do with pears. I like to have some savory options, and I want to make some more of the pear preserves, but I wanted to do something savory. And in the Ball New Book of Canning, and then it's in another place for Ball, they have pear roasted garlic preserves. And this recipe in this book calls for classic pectin, and the other recipe I saw was exactly the same by Ball but did not have the pectin. And I'm going to try it without the pectin. I don't care if it's not real thick, because I'm thinking this will be great to put on a pork loin or something like that. Today at Pike Creek Farm, we are going to make pear roasted garlic preserves. So come on along and let's do this little experiment together. Here's all the pears I just went out and picked, and there are probably hundreds more. This tree is huge. We couldn't reach them all, but there are so many pears, and they're not big. They taste great. I don't know if these are called seckled pears or what. The other pears are more like Bartlett, and they turn yellow and get real soft. So I'm going to take all the stems off of these, and I am going to wash them and then start peeling them. When I did my pears the other day, I found what was easiest for me was to cut them in half and then use a potato peeler. Because these are such little pears, it was the least amount of waste. And then I just used a small paring knife to get the core out. They say you can use a little spoon too, a teaspoon, but I don't know, my teaspoons must not be sharp enough. And then I'm going to cut the stem off. But I think I could poach them this way. I could poach them just like that if I wanted in a jar, so I might do that down the road too. I have so many pears this year. So it says to put it into slices. I'll just do quarters, and then so I'm going to keep doing this till I have enough to basically cover the bottom of that cookie sheet. You take one whole bulb of garlic and you cut off the top. So that all of that is exposed. And then we take the foil make it into a little holder for the garlic. And we put this in a corner. I am going to drain these real quick, and then they go in one layer on here. And I'm going to take a paper towel and dry them off a little so they're not too wet. I just didn't want them to turn a funky color. So now we take them and spread them out in one layer. On the sheet pan. This is going to go in the oven for 25 minutes. So I'll set the timer and bring you back when it's done and to the next step. See you soon. While everything's in the oven cooking, well, the pears and the garlic, I'm getting everything else ready. I have my steam canner out and filled with water. I am going to use my steam canner, and I'll get that just low so that the water is warm. I'm getting out the other ingredients I need: fresh thyme, apple cider vinegar, sugar, water, pepper, and salt. I don't know what you do when you're canning, but one of my favorite things when I was peeling the pears and cutting them up, things that take a little bit of time, I put on an audiobook, and I just love listening to that. It makes the time go fast. I was listening to a Sarah Price book. She's a Christian writer, and this is like a series that she wrote with an Amish girl who married someone who was an Englisher who was. So it's just light and something enjoyable for me to listen to. So I'm going to get my fresh thyme leaves off the stem so that they're ready to go in the pan when we're to that stage. The timer went off, and the directions say to flip the pears now, and then sprinkle with a 1/4 cup of sugar and put back in for 15 minutes. They seem to have shrunk some. Now we sprinkle with sugar. 1/4 cup. Okay. It doesn't say to stir, it just says to sprinkle. So we put this back in, and I'll put the timer on for 15 minutes. I'll bring you back when the timer goes off for the next step. Timer's going off. Let's get it out. What we have to do now is take the pears off and put them into a pan. Here they are. And the garlic has to go in for 15 more minutes, just this way on the oven rack. So I'm going to set the timer for 15. And these get scooped up and put into the Dutch oven here. So then we wait the 15 minutes, and then we squeeze the garlic in and we mash them together with a potato masher. I was reading the directions, and I'm supposed to add my 1/2 cup of water right now too. The garlic is done, so now we have to squeeze the pulp out. Sorry, I don't know what Missy's barking about. And it says to use the potato masher and kind of mash this all up together. I thought the Pampered Chef tool might be more productive at chopping up and mixing, and it is. Now we add a 1/4 cup of vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and make sure it's the 5% acidity. We need to add the remaining 1 cup of sugar. Teaspoon and a half of thyme, fresh thyme leaves. Half a teaspoon of salt. This is a 1/4 teaspoon measure. And half a teaspoon of pepper, ground pepper. And now we put this on the stove and we bring it to a boil. Here's what it looks like. Getting everything down from the edge. And I'm going to bring this to a boil. I'll bring it back when it's to the boiling stage. It is starting to thicken up. It says to keep stirring it. We don't want it to stick to the bottom. And it will become thick, and we want to cook it till it's at the gel stage. So I'm going to just keep stirring. I have a thermometer now to measure the temperature. You want it to get to 119 degrees. And it's not quite there. It's getting to the point to where I can like draw a line almost through it. But test again with a thermometer. It's almost there. It's at like 110. Lots of steam, sorry. It is now ready to put into the jars. It is thick enough and at the gel stage. And now we're going to add it up to the 1/4 inch mark. I have wide mouth 1/2 pint jars, and this smells so good. And my jars were warm from the dishwasher. Now I'm going to debubble and make sure there's no big pockets of air. Smooth it down on top to get it to the 1/4 inch. And it's real important that you make sure there's no air bubbles and that it's at the right headspace. And now we're going to take a wet paper towel and clean all that sugar and any of the preserves off of that edge to get a nice seal with the lid. And my debubbler has all the headspace marked on it. So I always measure, and I'm at a 1/4 inch. So now we can put the flat lid on and the ring and do it to finger tight. Don't crank it on too hard. And that can go into the steam canner. I ended up with enough for 2 full 1/2 pints, and then the third 1/2 pint wasn't full enough. So I'm going to transfer it over to a 1/4 pint. I think this would actually be very nice to make in 1/4 pints, and then a little bit left for us to go in the fridge, if it makes it that far. So debubble this, the same as the 1/2 pints. Make sure there's no air pockets. And then we will wipe the rim, get all the sugar and the preserves off, make sure there's nothing there to prevent a good seal. Put the flat on and the ring, and into the canner it will go, the steam canner. Here are the 3 jars in the steam canner, which I had heating up. The water comes up to that shelf. And I have them all situated on there. And now I put the lid on, and it has the gauge on top, and I have it marked for where I need that red needle to go for my location. You do a trial run with it. So I'm just wait for it to get to that point. I am going to do a little taste test, and this is definitely gelling up. It is not moving really in the jar, so I don't think, for my personal taste, that the pectin was needed. There's enough natural pectin in pears, and with the sugar, it all came out. So I'm gonna take a little bite and let you know what it tastes like, because it smells great. This is really good. It's savory, but it has a sweetness to it. The thyme comes out, the garlic has a little bit of a sharpness to it. This is awesome. I can see a lot of uses for this. Like I said, even on a charcuterie tray, it would be amazing. Set the timer to 10. And then turn the heat down some. And an interesting part, when you use a steam canner, when the timer goes off, you have to let it sit there for at least 5 more minutes without removing the lid. That is part of the processing time, actually. It's part of the safe tested method for using a steam canner. So 15 minutes and time. I'll bring you back when I take the jars out. You've already seen the taste test. I removed the lid, and now I will move these over to the mat. Oh, there goes one pop. Oh, and the one pop before I had the video on, so all 3 have popped now. Here's the jars out. They will rest now until tomorrow, when I'll take the rings off, wash them, and label them. You can see the pieces of thyme in it. Thank you everyone for stopping in today. I appreciate you watching my video and coming to my channel. If you want to see more on canning and like this video, push the like button and subscribe to my channel. I do videos on canning, on cooking and baking, and I love vintage recipes. Thank you very much for stopping by Pike Creek Farm. See you next time.